Hey there, and welcome back to LoveBug Branding Tips. I'm your host, Latasha, Army veteran, wife, mom, and CEO of LoveBug Branding. Every day, I help passionate nonprofits like yours cut through the noise and create real connections needed to spark real change. Nonprofits don't need branding, right? Wrong. If you're struggling to attract donors or get people to understand your mission, or your team is all over the place and can't get on the same page, branding is the missing piece. And no, I'm not talking about just your logo or your colors. I'm talking about your reputation, your message, and how people connect with your work. Let's talk about brand strategy and why it's the key to your nonprofit's growth and how you can start strengthening your brand strategy today. It starts by understanding that branding is more than a logo. I remember reading a post from a business owner who said, I had a logo, I had my colors mapped out, I had my design, but I didn't have a mission. I wasn't clear on my audience, and I had no systems. And honestly, that post stuck with me because so many nonprofit leaders make the same mistake. They focus on looking professional, but forget to communicate their impact. Your brand isn't just a logo, a tagline, or your color palette. Your brand is the story people tell about you when you're not in the room. It's what they say about you, not what you think about yourself. It's what donors think when they hear your name. It's the feeling your community has when they interact with your organization. If your messaging is unclear or inconsistent, you're making fundraising, hiring, and engagement way harder than it needs to be. So, what happens when your branding is weak? Let me break this down real quick. When your brand strategy is weak, donors don't understand your impact. If people have to dig to figure out what you do, they won't give. A confused mind doesn't donate. When your brand strategy is weak, funders can't see why they should invest. If your nonprofit looks all over the place, different messages on your website, social media, and grant proposals, you lose credibility. When your brand strategy is weak, your team lacks direction. If your staff and volunteers don't understand or know how to talk about your mission, they can't help it grow. When your brand strategy is weak, you stay stuck in survival mode. Instead of attracting opportunities, you're constantly chasing them. But here's the good news, you can change this by getting clear on your brand strategy. So, what does strong brand strategy do for your nonprofit? The fact is, when you take control of your brand, everything changes. You attract the right donors, people instantly understand what you do, why it matters, which makes it easier for them to say yes and give, which we all want. Fundraising becomes easier. Instead of begging for support, your messaging naturally draws people in. Three, your team becomes stronger. When your staff and volunteer know exactly how to communicate your mission, they become your best brand ambassadors. And finally, you move from chasing money to attracting it. Funders and partners start reaching out to you because your message is clear and compelling. That's why I created the LoveBug framework. It's a simple step-by-step process to help nonprofit leaders build a brand that works for them instead of against them. It's part of my course Mission Possible where I walk you through exactly how to clarify your brand, strengthen your team, and attract funding without the fluff. Pre-order now at a discounted price because once it launches in June, the price will go up. So here are some action steps, some things you can do this week to start strengthening your brand. First, I want you to go to your website. Imagine you're a first time visitor. Within 5 seconds, can you clearly understand who you serve, what impact you create, and why your work matters? It's not about your, if not, your brand may need some refreshing. You need to work on your communication, your messaging to make it clear, to be able to answer who you are, what you do, and why it matters quickly. Two, I want you to ask your team, your staff, your volunteers, ask them to explain your mission. If they don't all say the same thing, there's a gap. That means no one really understands your mission, which means they can't clearly communicate and they can't advocate and be the best ambassadors for your nonprofit. And lastly, I want you to get some outside feedback. Ask your donor, your partner, or community member how they would describe your nonprofit. Does their answer match the message you're trying to communicate? If not, it's time to go back to the drawing board. If this episode helped you, share it with a fellow nonprofit leader. Let's help more nonprofits create a message that truly makes an impact. Next week, we're breaking down the difference between branding and marketing. I'll give you a quick hint. Branding creates value, marketing extracts value. Don't miss it. Until next time.